Hello and welcome to CMQs, the Scottish Sun's political show. I'm Chris Musson, Associate Editor at the Scottish Sun, and with me at the Scottish Parliament is Conor Matchett, Scottish Political Editor.
Hello.
How are you doing, Conor?
It's been a busy old day, Chris. It's been a busy old day.
It's budget day at the Scottish Parliament, and it is now around 6 p.m. and Conor and I and Lewis Mackenzie, political reporter who sat by Conor in the office, are absolutely dripping in figures. We are trying to get our heads around the spin and the budget documents from this afternoon, and we've managed to fathom a few things, and we're just going to here to give you a quick rundown over the next 10 minutes. So, Conor, a little bit of an overview. What do you make of the spectacle there this afternoon?
I think this is one of those budgets that we've been kind of waiting for pretty much since the day that the UK Labour Party down south and Rachel Reeves announced theirs. £3.4 billion worth of cash, a lot of money to be going around, and Shona Robison wants to do some stuff that helps John Swinney win the next Holyrood election and make life a little bit difficult for Anas Sarwar, their closest rivals. I think it's been really interesting to watch exactly how they've gone about that. We'll talk about income tax and council tax in a minute, but politically, this has been a budget for all people. It's designed to try and get as many of the opposition parties behind the SNP and make it as difficult as possible for them to vote against it when it comes to the crunch.
Yeah, of course, and that's important to stress from the outset, is that this is a draft budget. It's not like the Westminster budget where there's a big whopping majority and it's over within a couple of days and what says goes today. Essentially, there's a bit of horse trading has got to go on over the next few weeks. And what we saw today was what Shona Robison wants us to focus on. And, we'll give her this for the first couple of minutes. She wants us to focus on her big announcement today that the Scottish Government will mitigate the two-child benefits cap. Now, we had an exclusive on this on our website. We got wind of this shortly before the budget today and ran a story on it. And sure enough, this was the rabbit today, this mitigation of the two-child cap. But when she came to announce it, Conor, what did she tell us?
Well, shock horror, this is one of those classic SNP moves where the headline sounds better than maybe what the actual detail is. I mean, this is basically Shona Robison stood up and going, we're going to mitigate the two-child cap. We're going to do it as quickly as we can. But that doesn't mean this year, and it barely means next year. It's most likely to come in by 2026. Now, we've been told a little bit more about why the reasons for that are. The Scottish Government are claiming that it's a reasonable thing to talk to the DWP over the next year, that it's at the fast end of what the DWP have told them to do, or how long it would take. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's basically a nothing policy with no money behind it at this stage, and is simply designed to make life difficult for Labour.
That's right. This is the budget for the financial year from next April, and not a penny of funding is actually committed to this policy. It's just a shiny, shiny thing by the looks of it to make us, look at that and look how great and virtuous they are. But there's no money committed to it. And indeed, if they get kicked out in 2026, the SNP, they won't even have to deal with this policy. This is kind of a trap for a Scottish Labour government that are coming in, right? Because they are going to have to deal with this, and they're going to have to lift the two-child cap or say we're not going to, when the UK government led by Keir Starmer and Labour down south are, possibly at that point still not lifting it themselves.
It's also a really good opportunity for the grievance machine to get into gear once again. We've kind of lost a little bit of that. There's been a lot of lovely talk about how much Ian Murray loves Kate Forbes and how much the Labour UK government's getting on with Scotland. But at the end of the day, the SNP want to be able to say to voters come 2026, we said we'd mitigate the two-child cap, and they were the ones who stopped us from doing it for whatever reason. Here's a big old list of grievances. So expect to hear a lot of that if we have delays to this process, or potential issues with what the SNP are suggesting. They'll claim they're being reasonable. The UK government will claim that they're being reasonable, and we'll end up back in the Tory years.
Indeed, and if I might have the last word on this whole two-child cap thing, my view on this is that, and I'm allowed to have views. I write a column. You're a political editor. You're meant to remain, or pretend to remain, impartial at least. For me, it's just a load of bollocks. It's not even part of the budget. Yeah, it's her flagship budget announcement today. I mean, the whole thing is just a distraction from the meat of the budget, which we're going to get onto now. Income tax. Of course, we know from recent years that Scots who are earning over a certain amount, it was about 28,500. It's now about 30,000. Scots earning over that pay increasingly more income tax. Scots earn under that pay a little bit less. Now, today, Shona Robison made out she'd got a great big sort of early Christmas gift for workers in terms of tweaking the tax bands so everybody pays a little bit more at a lower rate. But we've been looking into this, Conor, and tell us about the actual reality of the implications of this.
Yeah, well, I mean, we revealed at the weekend that there would be no income tax rate movement. So this is, the 42, 48, 5p, 48p, etc., 21p rates that you see on your payslip. That they weren't going to change. What she's done instead is shift the tax threshold, which is the point at which you start paying more tax, by 3.5%, which she claims is double inflation. I'd like her to tell that to people in a pub in Glasgow. That's all that is.
When was the last time you were in a pub in Glasgow, Conor?
In recent weeks, actually. So it's in.
Fine, carry on.
I want a pub quiz in the West End. There you go. Anyway,
Brilliant, carry on. Of course.
Point being is that the thresholds have been frozen for years to the point where the independent fiscal watchdog in Scotland changed the way that they did their forecasting and said, well, we're just going to assume you're going to freeze it forever. And what this effectively means is they've increased it for the basic and the intermediate rate. By the equivalent, once all of the money is in your pay packet, of about £5 to £15, which is, if you can do the maths, about a penny a day.
A year, right? £5 to £15 a year.
A year, about a penny a day.
Well, we've done the maths, haven't we? We've done the maths, and it's for more than 1 million earners at the lower end of the scale. It's equivalent to 1.4 pence a day. Massive boost.
Yeah.
On the Scottish government, absolutely wonderful. Anyway, so moving on from that, what didn't they mention in terms of tax in the budget? In fact, no, forgive me. Shona Robison did mention this. It's council tax. And everybody's been speculating, is the Scottish government going to lift the freeze that was imposed last year? And if it does lift the freeze, is it going to cap council tax in any way, shape or form? Because council tax is set by 32 different local authorities. So on that, in her budget speech, I've got it here, she said, while it would be for councils to make their own decisions, with record funding, there is no reason for big increases in council tax next year. But in the budget document itself, there's nothing. So essentially, the council tax freeze, as has been confirmed since by people behind the scenes, rather than being upfront about it in the actual document, the council tax freeze no longer exists. And there's no cap, Conor, right? So what does this mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were talking to SNP sources after the budget, and there was, in fact, discussions behind the scene about putting on a possible cap on council tax, and they've decided to go a different way. Their policy is, as one senior source said to me, no cap, no freeze, which sounds like a really, really bad kind of drinks advert. There you go. And what that effectively means is that they believe that the £1 billion in extra council funding that they've announced in today's budget, which is a lot of money, it's more than has come out of the government in recent years to local authorities.
Well, it's more than my house is worth.
But it's enough for councils not to hike council taxes by the double digits. So we were looking around, and Aberdeenshire Council were talking about maybe 20%. Perth and Kinross want 10%. The Borders want 10% prior to this budget. And the government are now claiming that their big boost of funding will stop that and basically limit. It's an effective cap, is what they're trying to say. They're trying to shame councils into only hiking it.
But this is just the Scottish government just like basically trying to shift the blame immediately to councils. Because to start with, councils will doubtless dispute the 1 billion increase figure, because basically the Scottish government have got, and councils and all sorts of parts of the public sector have got different ways of measuring how much money they get and how much they increase. And of course, the Scottish government will choose the one which is most favourable to them. And we've seen this in previous years where COSLA have said, no, we're not getting that much. Actually, a lot of that money is ring fenced for certain things. And in reality, we're facing a measly increase or indeed a cut. So COSLA have said, they've issued a holding statement tonight, haven't they? They basically said, we're not sure yet. We're going to analyse all this and come back to it. But in the meantime, we have the threat of huge council tax rises potentially hanging over everyone in Scotland. And again, we've crunched some numbers tonight, me and you, and we have worked out that if you look at a typical Band D property in Scotland, the average Band D property, if the bill goes up by 5%, Conor, how much does that mean?
70 quid, 71 quid a year for Band D property. If it's 10%, it's £141.80p. You can see where this is going. 15% would be £212. If you're talking about per month, which is how most people pay their council tax by direct debit, 5% increase is 6 quid a month. 10% is 12 quid effectively. You're talking a couple of pints down the boozer, or you're talking, food on the table for your family.
I don't understand what you're moaning about, Conor, because you're getting £5 a year off your income tax.
Oh wait, no, you're not. £5. You're not getting £5 a month off. You're getting penny a day.
Penny a day, £5 a year. Right, in all seriousness, it pales into insignificance, doesn't it, alongside these potential council tax rises, which are coming because, councils have argued years of underfunding.
And don't forget as well, Chris, that this is a budget where, Shona Robison and John Swinney, in the days ahead of this, were talking about how it would put money in people's pockets. That was their big trail overnight into today. And they have, it's just loose change. Yeah,
indeed, if that. So just quickly on the NHS, there was obviously a big play made today. We all know the trouble that the NHS is in, waiting lists of nearly 900,000 people. Worst ever A&E waiting times in October have just been recorded. So today, Shona Robison said, more record funding for the NHS, £21 billion. And with this, they're going to cut long waits by 2026. But there's a slight problem with that, isn't there?
Yeah, the slight problem is that it's basically just a shifted target. They've shifted their own target forward a couple of years so they can hit it on time.
Exactly, or back, or however way you want to look at it. Basically, they promised to do this stuff. They promised to eradicate long waits of over 12 months by September 2024. And now Shona Robison stands up today and says, we're spending all this extra money, aren't we great? And with this, we're going to end these long waits by 2026. And we're expected to be thankful for that.
The other thing that's worth mentioning here is that the only reason the vast amount of that money is going for the Scottish NHS is because of the UK Labour budget. You wouldn't have heard it in the statement today, but the vast majority of that £2 billion is consequential straight from Westminster.
Yeah, but again, all the good things that happen today will be due to the SNP, all the bad things will be due to the UK government. I mean, it's the whole... This is power without responsibility thing, which I'm always ranting about, and you're sort of like holding the phone away from your ear.
Every day.
It's that writ large again. Every day, yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's a quick rundown of what happened today, some of the key points. Of course, it's early days. As we said, the budget is just the draft budget. What we've now got, because it's a minority administration at Holyrood, is months of horse trading. It's going to be January, February before the actual budget is voted. The budget is voted on, and this SNP need the support of at least one other party. And there's already a suggestion that from experts, not just me and Conor, that there's money sloshing around somewhere secretly in the background. So, they can essentially horse trade with parties over the next couple of months. So it's early days. I think these headline things will remain, but it remains to be seen what happens. And, we better go on with writing tomorrow's paper.
Yeah, there's plenty still to write. Don't you worry.
Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And please stay tuned for another CMQ soon. Thanks.